Testing 1, 2. Testing.
Two. I'd like to call this meeting to order. A regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, April 7th at 7 PM in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you. Next item we have, I'd like to call Chief Merton forward for the swearing in of Captain Daniel McCulloch and Lieutenant Matthew Jones of the Germantown Police Department. Chief.
Thank you, Board. It gives me pleasure tonight to introduce you to the rest of the command staff since my promotion. Captain Daniel McCulloch and Lieutenant Matthew Jones. Dan McCulloch has over 12 years of experience and Lieutenant Jones has over 10. So I'll ask them to come forward so they can get sworn in. We'll do the captain first.
Microphone, Brian. Here, testing. Is that working?
Lena?
Doesn't appear to work, so we're going to speak very loudly. Using one of these.
This works.
Yeah, it's working?
Yep.
Thank you. You guys hear me okay? They're saying no? Okay, we'll try them. That better? Perfect. We're gonna kind of station it up here.
Okay, let's do this.
I'm gonna have you raise your right hand. Okay, and I'm gonna go easy and slow because it's
All
very
right.
long. Ready? So state your name.
Dan McCulloch.
Having been appointed, you're gonna repeat after me.
Okay.
Having been promoted to captain with the Germantown Police Department
Having been promoted to captain with the Germantown Police Department
and have entered upon the duties thereof,
and have entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Germantown,
and the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Germantown,
and that you will faithfully and impartially
and I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of your ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help you God.
so help me God.
We're going to have you sign off, and I'm going to congratulate you
Thank
on your promotion. That spelled correctly for you first? Yep. And you're going to sign right there, Daniel. And I will be notarizing it, and
All right.
whoever wants to take pictures, feel free to come up.
You want everyone in it? Sure, why not? We'll do that first. Congratulations. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, Chief.
And Lieutenant Matthew Jones.
Hi.
Right.
Have you right over by the flag. And we're going to use this again. How are you?
Good.
Good. Okay, I'm going to have you raise your right hand. You just step forward a little bit so they can hear you out there. You're going to repeat after me. First, state your name for the record.
Matthew Jones,
Having been promoted to lieutenant with the Germantown Police Department
having been promoted to lieutenant with the Germantown Police Department
and have entered upon the duties thereof,
and have entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm
swear or affirm
that you will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
the Code of Ordinances,
the Code of Ordinances
Village of Germantown,
with the Village of Germantown,
and that you will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
said office
of said office
to the best of your ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help you God.
So help me God.
Here. You can use your lucky pen. There you go. And a copy will be provided to Chief Merton, okay?
Thank you.
Did you have them do their ethics acknowledgement? Did you have them do an ethics form by you, or should that be something that they'll have? You did it by you, and that's on file with you? Perfect.
Beautiful family.
I just want to thank you all for taking the time tonight, allowing me to do this. Thank you.
Appreciate you allowing us to witness it, Chief, and bringing this forward. It's always good to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I will email you a copy.
It was working.
It's user error.
Might be the setting back in the room.
It could be. All right, next item is President's Report. Just one thing to report tonight. Just to let everybody know that it has been my honor and privilege to serve the residents of Germantown for the last 17 years as your village president and as trustee for District 4. I've always appreciated the support and respect that the residents have provided to me during my terms. And one of the things that I've always told people, either inside or outside of Germantown, is our residents are the best. They volunteer, they support, and they make this the great community that it is. So thank you for all your support over the past years. I now pledge my support to the newly elected president, Bob Soderberg, and I know that he will do a really good job for the residents for the next 3 years. So congratulations, Bob. That's all I have for President's Report. Next item is announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. We'll start with committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room at 5:30 PM on Wednesday, May 7th.
Thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on Monday, April 21st in this boardroom, 5:30.
Okay, and then the next public safety meeting is?
It is Monday, May 5th at 6 PM in this boardroom.
Thank you, Trustee Cutts. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to announce for forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller.
Hi, I just want to announce that we will have a senior advisory committee meeting on Thursday, April 10th at the senior center at 1:30. That's Thursday afternoon at 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Village Administrator.
President Walter, the staff here in the Village Hall and other departments wanted to just acknowledge and recognize you and your service to the community for the past 17 years, 15. And we just got a small token, a remembrance for you to take with you. It's a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, one of my favorites, and if you'll indulge me, because it's one of my favorites, I'm going to read it. It's called The Man in the Arena. And Roosevelt said, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And I think those words, I think, do a good job of characterizing you and the time that we've spent together here in Village Hall. And you know, you've always put the needs of what the community is best, what's best for the community above what necessarily is the easiest thing to do. So with that, we wanted to pass this on to you and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you to the staff and again to the residents. It has been an honor and one of the greatest things that I've done in my life so far. So I appreciate, you know, this very much. And I thought I was going to have trouble with the president's report, but this one is a little bit more emotional and brings it a little bit closer to the surface. So, but I appreciate that very much, and I'll definitely hang it in a place of honor. So thank you all. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Would like to make it.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
We previously talked about the Board of Review, and that question was posed, you know, how folks can find information for the Board of Review for the assessments. We have on our clerk's page there is actually a tab for Board of Review. Just wanted to advise everyone that the 2024 information is still on there, and 2025 will soon be added. Though it will be the comparison photos, in addition to alphabetical look by index and by tax key number. The Board of Review this year will be in June. That date will be on our website as well. And open book will be held in May from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. in this room. And that information will be also on our website along with the assessor's information to contact them. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports, we'll then go to citizen input. If there's anyone within our audience that'd like to come forward for citizen input, you're welcome to do so at this time. All I would ask is you come to the podium and fill out a slip and turn it in and state your name and your address for the record so those that are watching within the audience or at home can know who you are. If anyone is joining us via WebEx, please make your intentions known that you want to participate in citizen input so that the moderator may recognize you.
Just be patient with me. I'm still having some after effects from my accident and I'm trying to focus. I can't see the light very good, so I have to keep my glasses on. Something came up at the last meeting when Bailey Copeland was here, and one of the board members on the Plan Commission asked her how she was doing with her interviews with BMO. And she was very hesitant. And I got very suspicious because I talked to the man at BMO about them selling their property. And there was a firm no. He controls the lease. He's not interested. So I called him and he said nobody has contacted him regarding selling his land or the property. Now, I found that very unusual, and I didn't push him because he's kind of a big deal, and he was on vacation. He was kind enough to take my call, and he said he has not been approached. BP, I don't know the approachment, but the owner of the gas station said they're not interested. And here we go, and Bailey Copeland has been pushing buying this property. And I wonder how many people on the board have seen, when anybody's going to interview people, they should turn in a report, a name, and let the people know what they found out, okay? I don't know if that was done, and I don't know what happened here, but I just became very suspicious. And they're not interested. So now where's the truth here? And has anyone on the board even had Copeland turn in reports who she talked to? I don't know. That's your business, but I think it should have been done. Maybe we wouldn't have been pushed so much by buying all this property. And now we're sitting with the BM gas station and BMO, and if they don't do anything, what are we going to do? We're stuck with $5 million for a clinic that a lot of people in this village don't want it to go. They want that clinic. They use it. They need it. And I'm just concerned that these two companies, I think their main concern was getting this stuff sold and making very, very lucrative commissions on this property. And now with the $5 million purchase, that's a lot of money. And I just found out we have no back door to a contract, and any contract this village makes from here on in should have a back door, and should talk to the attorney, always have a back door in any contract in case something happens. So we're not tied in and locked up to millions of dollars. And it's foolish. I've been involved in a lot of big contracts when I was with General Motors. And let me tell you something, there's always a back door, always, to get out if there's a problem. And I didn't see that. I asked about it and there isn't any. So I would suggest, to be very honest with you, I would dismiss Bailey, Copeland, and Rinka. I don't think they have the value that was placed on them. I've talked to a lot of developers in my life, and just from what was done here with no comments on BMO, and I don't know what happened, but he said he was never approached. That's a bothersome. The whole project, pushing TIDs on the people, spending more money from our tax fund. It's a bad plan nobody wants apartment buildings. And I'm hoping with the new leadership, we'll just sell the property, sell it, get out what we can. Most of the people I've talked to, and I've been passing out a lot of forms, and they don't like what's happening. And so all I'm saying is I hope that we wake up. I think this whole process that we used was very sloppy, and everybody's shoving this 250 plan, and most people say, what the heck is that? They don't even care about that.
You wrapping it up, Ms. Benders?
So, okay, that's all I'm saying. So I think we need to wake up and figure out what we're going to do here with some smarter people on the plan. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you.
Let me start by saying, Dean, thank you very much for your service. I really appreciate it. And it's for the longest time, I thought you slept in a suit.
Thank
So
you.
it's been my pleasure to get to know you a little bit better on things, stuff.
I appreciate
like
that.
here.
Thank you.
Tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the agenda and about high density housing. And I see them as interrelated a bit. Since I've started coming to these meetings, it's high density housing has showed up on the agenda time and time again. I don't know exactly how many times, but it keeps showing up. And the result of that is this room gets filled. And invariably, everybody is sitting there saying, no, don't do that. Do not do that. Time and time again, it's the same thing. High density housing, a bunch of residents show up, say, no, don't want it. Now, the agenda, as far as I can tell, 3 people control it. And 2 of them are employees. Because I've asked my trustee to get stuff on the agenda before, and she's said, I'll try. And it's not gotten on there. So it's very interesting to me. I can see where the employees have to be able to put things on it within their duties, their official duties and everything like that. But I think there's got to be a little bit more latitude given to the trustees getting things on the agenda so that the people they represent can be heard, and the people of Germantown can hear the trustees and the presidents, the board's thought on it in return. Now, to expand upon this just a little more, last planning commission meeting had high density housing on it. It's part of the village center, and boom, we had a full room. Amazing. And everybody was against it, and spoke passionately against it. Do not do this. And it just makes me wonder, because what I hear out of the board is one thing, but what the board does is clearly a different thing. So, which is it for me? What am I supposed to do here? Because naturally, I'm going to sit here and say, what you do speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. And I just want to emphasize that point for you. And I want to share something with you that I'm pretty sure that Trustee Baum and myself both know this, but at least 2 of those high density projects had these roots in a thing called the Bauhaus School of Architectural Design. And there's all kinds of things to be said about Bauhaus. People love it, people hate it, everything like that. I do want to share a simple fact with you that the school started 1918, 1920, something like that. Don't remember, don't care. But it was closed down in 1933 because the Nazi Party demanded it, because it was way too communistic, is what they wanted. Now, I think the people are very, very clear. They do not want Lafayette Park like what's in Detroit here in Germantown. We definitely want Germantown to be a horizontal community, not a vertical community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you. Oops. Get it.
Good evening, Scott Heffley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. A few comments tonight. I did read over the review memo done by our attorney on the JRB. I was here for JRB. Let's just be honest and say the statute's confusing, like a lot of state statutes are. I saw 2 different ways to read it. I was here, the plant commissioners were confused. And there was like a strange, awkward debate between our village administrator and the school board president, which was hard to listen to. I don't think it was intentional, but when we have something that involves legalities and these type of legal questions, I would appreciate if our attorney's here to answer those questions. Those people clearly were looking for some sort of help, and there wasn't any because our attorney wasn't here. And I believe he should know, or somebody should know, when we're talking about things of that nature, to help out the people from the community that serve. Sure, I think a couple people, sitting up there knew what was going on, but most of those commissioners did not, and they felt really bad because they didn't know what to do. So I think in the future, we should do a better job of doing that. I was here for public safety. I want to thank Trustee Pieper. There were some questions regarding, funding some positions for the police going forward in the next budget, and how do we split it up? I thought she asked some very good questions. She requested more info, and the committee ended up putting it forward to GGF. You know what? That's how we do things around here. We don't bypass committees. We go to the next committee that can help and get the answer to the village board. I like seeing that. I want to thank her for that. I have another comment that I try to bring stuff up from months ago, or years ago, or whatever it is. I've asked a lot of questions to this board and this village staff, and a lot of people in the room have too. And a lot of those questions have not been answered. So my question to you is it the duty of me to follow up with village personnel or whoever to get my questions answered? Is it always on the person asking the questions, or do we make note of it and try to answer those? There's probably 100 questions I've asked that have not been answered in the 3+ years I've been coming here. So some of it I followed up with, but is that my responsibility? I'd like to know what protocol that we have on that. Just a question. I read about the 4th of July. I've been involved with the 4th of July one way or another for 26 years. You've seen me in the parade, maybe not. I was confused about what we're doing. We don't seem to have a long-term solution. And I can tell you, I knew that years ago because the different volunteer organizations that put it on can't handle it. They can't get the volunteers. So I understand this is a short-term fix, but I surely hope the village isn't planning on forcing the rec department to do it every year. If we want something, maybe the village themselves should run it. Maybe village staff should run it and not call the rec department. That's my idea. Okay? We did that with the Celebrate Germantown Committee back in the day. We had some trustees working on it. I know that fell apart, but maybe we can reinvigorate it. My final comment is I'd like to thank Mr. Walter for his service to this village, many years of service. And I know, I've known him for probably 15 years on and off. I will say we didn't always agree, but we always found a way to get along, and I think that's okay.
It's
So-
called respect.
Yeah, so I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Anyone else wishing to come forward for citizen input? Thank you.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road. Again, thanks, Dean, for your service to the community. I can fully appreciate how board service is not easy, especially when there are those contentious issues. But thank you. Your service has been appreciated.
Thank you, Sarah.
And for Brian, thank you for the summary about the Joint Review Board. I think this should be a lesson to the board, though, in terms of his summary wasn't necessary. If you go to the Department of Revenue and their discussion on this topic about the appointment of the citizen member as well as the chair for the meeting, it talks about best practice. And though the Joint Review Board can be perceived as a standing entity, best practice is to still go ahead and make those appointments, even if the same people are fulfilling the role. So we could have saved ourselves some money by just doing the 2-minute going through the motions of electing them and moving on. That demonstrates transparency and consistency to the community and can avoid situations like that. The next item is from the Plan Commission and Trustee Baum indicating that he no longer needs to recuse himself. I don't know if the board members are aware of the financing that was done for the flower source and the vacant parcel, but we hold mortgages now with Gray Wolf Partners. $550,000 for the 1 acre parcel and $645,000 for the flower source parcel. So we are still connected with Gray Wolf Partners, and I'm assuming the same structure has been done on the Ascension property. And so we're on the hook. Those come due in a year from now. So I think there needs to be agreement that Trustee Baum still has that relationship with Gray Wolf. And given that we owe them money, he should be recusing himself on everything surrounding those properties. So, and then the other thing is, why wouldn't we disclose to the public that Gray Wolf is holding a mortgage for the village? Just another question. The Windows 11 upgrade. Well, I'm glad that the cost is $80,000 approximately less than when it originally came forward. It kind of begs the question of, if it wouldn't have been challenged when it first came forward at a ticket of $150,000, we would have been foolish and just went ahead and blew $150,000 when the true price is $68,000. So raising the bar of accountability and stewardship for our money and making sure that something doesn't make it here until it's gone through the vetting and we truly are paying a reasonable price for something. Looking over the contract for item F and the acquisition of right-of-way for the Richfield water sewer, I think you should be clarifying a couple points before you go ahead and authorize signing that. First of all, we know that Richfield has had some issues and their development fell through. So why would we be agreeing to pay $140,000 now when we don't know what the status of that agreement is? Also, the statement about the real estate tax proration, says seller shall not be responsible for the payment of taxes assessed against the property for 2025 and thereafter. I'm assuming this better be only the taxes that pertain to the road right-of-way that would be acquired and not those parcels as a whole. And that is a point of contract that you would want to make sure gets clarified. And then do you also realize that in this, there is an agreement where we'll be putting in a gravel road initially, and then it calls for, when a developer agreement is in place with Legend, that we would be putting in the paved road. And if I read correctly, we would not be doing any special assessments for connection for any development on those properties for connection to the water and sewer. So why would we be giving the owners, and if they're going to strike a development agreement, why would we provide free connection to all of those properties? Further, we don't have the railroad permission, so why are we even going to agree to put in a dead-end road there when we don't have that piece in place as of yet? Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward at this time for citizen input? Steve? Good, how are you?
As a member of our utility advisory committee, I kind of like the topics of sewer and water issues, being an engineering individual. And I know tonight we're going to talk about the signing and purchase for easements across a couple parcels to get the water and sewer extended to Richfield. It's one of the items on the list. And I guess I just have questions here because I looked at your packet. It's 331 pages. I don't know who the hell reads it 331 pages, but I read a couple of them, and I'm finding a lot of conflicting information here, and I wanted to point it out tonight. In that package, Steve has a document for us regarding the action to approve the vacant land purchase and sale agreement. And it says that, as Sarah mentioned, that our share of the cost is $140,000, and it's being split 50-50 with Richfield. Then as I was reading the document there on page 174 of 331, and this is the quote here, as part of the IGA agreement, the Village of Richfield will acquire all necessary right-of-way and pay construction costs associated with the extension of Germantown Municipal Services. So which is it? Are we on the hook for $140,000? I got two different things here. I'm just asking if, I know I can't ask the question tonight, but I'm asking if the board can jot down questions. What is it? We got to get this ironed out. I don't want to see this ending up. Many people don't know when the Grace Commons got built in Menominee Falls across from the Germantown Power Plant at County Line Road. The village never billed Menominee Falls for all the impact fees. We lost over $200,000. We never billed the village of Menominee Falls for that project. I don't want to see any of this falling through with Richfield right now. I'm a little scared about that. Also in there, it indicates that there's apparently one additional customer that the law firm's working with to get right-of-way agreements. We apparently haven't reached that stage yet. And when I look at the parcels out there and see who owns what out there, I see that there's a Frystat, I think, corporation out of Chicago, Illinois. That might be the company we're working with. Looks like they own a number of parcels, so we must be negotiating with them. And I see when you look at some of the drawing, there's an exhibit drawing that shows how these easements are going to follow through there. I think this is page 206 of 331. To line up with the future road that we call High Point Pass, we jog further to the west and we go on to the Holy Hill storage property. Maybe we have an easement for that, but maybe we don't. But it looks to me that we need to get easements from several different parties yet. That's not what I'm seeing here tonight. Like I said, I know I can't ask these questions, but I'd really like to know as a citizen too, and I think the board should ask these questions to find out. Once we have all the easements, is our next step to put out requests for bids, and are we going to actually start building the sewer and water? I don't know what the status is at all of building this, or are we going to wait until Richfield comes up with a customer that needs a sewer and water. I would think they'd be crazy to have them pay a bill for $14-15 million to build this, and they can't use it. I sure hell as a community wouldn't want it built there. But I don't know if they're on the hook for this or not. I mean, is there a sunset clause where if this doesn't happen by 2028, we can pack up and the deal's off the table? We're just not going to provide them sewer and water. Those are kind of questions that I had. Another question that I just had, and it doesn't affect what you're deciding tonight, but on page 232 of the 331, there are some maps in there that show how the sanitary and sewer water, sanitary and the water are proposed to go through these parcels, get up past the Green Bay Packaging Company, down the Rockfield Road, and then over to Richfield. The drawing that's in there, I know cannot be correct because on this drawing, it shows the 16-inch water main going underneath the freeway to Richfield. And then normally on a water system, you loop it for redundancy. You don't want this thing to fail and they're out of water. So it's looped back, but it's coming back across the freeway right next to the other 16-inch water main. You never put two main feeders next to each other. I worked for We Energies for 35 years. We would not put two main feeders side by side. If we lose it, everything's gone to hell. And at some of the meetings that I've been at, I know I saw a drawing from an engineer that said, we moved one of the lines further to the south, and it actually helped the whole project because of the height grade difference. We got better water pressure into the development. So I'm just asking that, I guess when these documents are all put together, that there's probably so many different versions, if we could at least pull the right drawings. Because the stuff I looked at tonight, I'm thinking, where the hell is this coming from? And finally, I just want to say, Dean, it's been great knowing you and seeing you. And I know this past summer, you and I always seem to meet at the recycling center. For some reason, we're on that same schedule. But I do remember the first time I met you, came to a board meeting and had to do with the recycling carts.
Yeah, I
And that
remember.
led to one hell of a fiasco. And Terry was the first time, I think, and David Baum, and it was fun. That's the first time I got involved in all this. I don't remember when that was. Was that back in 2008 or?
It was like 08 or 09,
Okay.
yeah.
So there was, we got our recycling carts and there were some issues, and I brought in, I had this room packed for the first meeting, and it was our old village administrator, David Shornack. And I don't know if he was afraid of, like, who the hell's this Steve guy coming in with all these people? So they actually had a police officer here. And I think they didn't know what to expect. But this went on for several months, but ultimately I got what we wanted for the citizens. I felt good about it. So Dean, I guess I want to thank you for your years of service. Firsthand, your passion, dedication to the community, you've always done well. I wish you good health and in your future endeavors, everything great. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, take care.
See you later.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. We'll see you at the recycling center.
Okay. I was there on Saturday, so. Thanks again.
Point of order, if we're going to allow citizen input and time them, then we should actually keep them to the time, and there's no alarm, there's no nothing. If we are going to put it in our meeting agenda that we require them to be under 3 minutes, but not hold them to that.
Thank you for that. Anyone else wishing to come forward for citizen input? No one else? All right. Then we could go on to the next item. Oh, was there anybody online? Sorry, should,
Let me double check here. I don't believe so, but
just want to make sure.
nope, no one.
All right,
With a hand up.
perfect. All right, thank you all for coming forward for citizen input. Next item is consent agenda. Board?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G as presented.
Second.
I'd like to pull consent agenda item B and F.
Wait. Motion made and seconded. We got to know who the second was. Trustee Warren. All right, so we have a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G. F.
Yeah, there's only F.
State the motion for A through F, please, trustee Baum.
Sure, I will make a motion to approve consent agenda, items A through F as presented.
Right, and that's all right with the second?
Yes.
All right, then trustee Pieper.
I'd like to pull consent agenda item B and F.
B and F.
Correct.
All right. Further discussion on a motion to approve. No further discussion, then we will vote, roll call vote on items A, C, D, and E.
Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Ketz?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Village President Walter?
Aye. Motion passes. Then consent agenda item B, which is contract for turf management plan with Total Lawn Care for 2025 through 2026. Trustee Pieper.
I'll keep this short. I know that it was stated in the previous meeting packet for Park and Rec that it was sent out to bid to three people, and this was the only bid that actually came back with the number. I don't feel comfortable with that. I feel like we need to at least compare numbers to something else. Is there a reason why these other two contractors did not submit a bid? I find that concerning. And honestly, with the increase that we see from year to year on this, I want this actually put out for RFP, not just contacting two different vendors to submit numbers or a proposal. I want this to actually be advertised as an RFP.
Village Administrator.
I did not speak with the companies that did not submit proposals. I can tell you that David J. Frank Landscaping and Corbin Law Care were contacted and the services were described, and they chose not to submit a quote. This was not one that we, in some cases, we do advertise and open it up for anyone who's interested in participating. With the size of this contract, we did not do that this time. That is an option if that's what the village board would direct.
I make a motion to send this back to RFP and at least have one other number to compare this to.
Understand the motion. Send it back to RFP.
Send this contract.
So your direction to staff is to put it out for
Yes,
proposal.
yes. And at least receive one other proposal.
Publish it as an RFP for a request for proposal.
I'll second that.
Might I suggest that you only want to send it for a formal RFP? We cannot control whether or not somebody responds or not.
So where are the RFPs actually posted? Where can people see the RFPs?
Well, if you do a formal RFP, typically they're posted on the village's website.
Where? Because I've never seen anything posted on there.
We do post formal RFPs. It's under, I could find the tab. There's a section, it's near where we post positions that we're filling.
Okay.
So
Could it
there's a
maybe
spot
be
there.
put on the homepage for more visibility and possibly posted on the Facebook? I mean, the more competitive.
Yeah, we can, yes, we can put that under the news flash and we have, typically we don't, we haven't posted RFPs on the Facebook page, but we have done it on, for example, I usually share them on my LinkedIn page. I know some of the other department heads do that as well.
I like that. Like the more places to post it, the better. So yeah, I stand by this. I think we need at least another number to compare this to, because for all we know, this is highway robbery and we don't even have an idea because we have nothing to compare it to.
Further discussion on the motion to go out for RFP. Trustee Warren.
So how does this compare to what we estimated and how does it compare to previous year's costs?
Matthew?
Well, if Matthew has the information relative to budget, and Gil is back. I didn't see Gil back there.
I
He
checked
should
out
be
the
able to
Park
answer
and
the
Rec's
question.
agenda and I found no information on that as well.
You want to come up, Gil? You got to come up, Gil. Just so the people at home can hear you as well.
The previous contract was for about 32 or 31,000, so it only raised up about $2,600. And yes, I did send an RFP out to the two companies that were listed on here that did not respond back.
But that's not putting out an RFP by reaching out to two individual companies and asking for bids. That's not an
Trustee Pieper?
RFP. Yes,
Would you like to speak?
I just did.
Raise your hand.
I'm good.
Thank you. Further discussion? Trustee Cutts had her hand up. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Question.
Trustee Kaminsky.
Gil, question for you. Is this, how long have we used this company?
They've been doing this for us for either 9 or 10 years now.
And they know what to do, obviously.
That is correct, yes.
You like what they do?
They've done a great job, yes.
Okay. And who's the math whiz? Rick? So $2,000 is not that big of a
26
increase.
Rick's the
What
math
percent?
whiz?
Yeah, he is. Because you're sitting next to me.
I mean, per cutting, that seems pretty small.
It's not just cutting.
They also fertilize. Put down
And
weed
weed control,
weed control.
fertilizer. They mow as well?
No.
We mow, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Village mows.
Right.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Fertilizer.
That's
Further-
a 10% increase, by the way.
Further discussion on the motion to go out for RFP.
Question.
You still have the floor, Trustee Kaminsky.
How many acres do we know that we're actually doing approximately?
Well, we're doing all the 9 village parks as well as the football complex itself. So I believe well over 100 acres altogether.
Okay, this doesn't seem like a bad price.
Trustee Rick Miller?
I was just gonna say that I have a lawn care service that does mine, and it's gone up at least 10% this year, so this doesn't seem out of line.
Further discussion? No further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
No.
trustee Cutts,
No.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
No.
trustee Pieper,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
No.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter,
Aye. 4-4. Motion fails.
Oh, motion fails.
I make a motion to send this back to GGF. Or to send it to GGF. It came from Park and Recs, and I'm making a motion to send it to GGF.
It went through GGF.
And it went through Park and Rec?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I withdraw that motion. I make a motion to at least get some other number to compare this to see relative what we're paying is, if it is the market cost.
We lost.
What's your motion is? State it again, please.
I make a motion to at least get one other bid. So we have a comparable number. So we know we're not getting overcharged.
Motion made. Do we have a second? More time. A motion made. Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion to approve? No discussion. Roll call vote, please.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Nay.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Pieper, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter,
No. What is that? 5-3?
4-4.
4-4.
Okay, so,
That's hilarious.
okay, all of you people voting for this, then make your own motion. I'm trying here. I'll try this one more time. I make a motion to send this to RFP
We've had that one already.
Mr. President,
Village Administrator,
if I could suggest as a way of moving this forward and expediting the process, if you would want to postpone the vote on this until the next board meeting, I think that the Parks and Rec Director and I can get at least one other response here.
Make a motion to postpone this till the next village board meeting.
motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. I'm sorry, postpone, not table. Any discussion on that? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed? Motion carries. Next item on consent agenda is item F, award of annual tree planting contract to Dan Larson Landscaping for an amount not to exceed $29,250. Trustee Peeper.
My only issue with this one is we just voted to create a tree committee for the village, did we not? So if we created a committee, I would like to see this go through the tree committee before being placed on consent agenda. Because I looked at the map of where all the trees are supposed to be placed and whatnot, and I can guarantee you, nobody spoke to those neighbors where the trees are supposed to be planted in, pretty much in their yard and such. Okay, I make a motion to send consent agenda item F to the new tree committee.
Second.
Question, is that their purview? To approve contracts for tree planting?
Or where the trees are going to be planted.
Well, where is one thing, but to contract alone. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I can give you a little background on why we got to this point.
Sure.
So as part of the comprehensive tree plan that we adopted last year, it provided for the creation of a tree board that included a trustee member, a citizen member, and then the village forester. But because of the election and the desire to make an appointment to the board following the election and the timing of the work for this year, what we discussed at Public Works was proceeding with the contract for this year and then reporting to the board after it forms on what transpired through the operations of the contract, and then follow the process that was identified in the comprehensive tree plan for the coming season, for the 26th season. The village, the comprehensive tree plan and the new ordinance for the tree board states that it's an advisory board. So I don't believe it has contract authority, but I think Brian's still kind of hunting that down.
Board's authority under the new ordinance shall render advice and recommendation as it deems appropriate with respect to the comprehensive tree plan. B, board shall annually render advice and recommendation to the Public Works and Highways Committee with respect to the village's annual operation plan, communications plan, and 5-year plan. The board shall also render such advice and recommendation or report as may be requested by the Plan Commission, Public Works and Highways Committee, and or the village board. And C, the village board shall hear and decide appeals under section 17.60 sub 9. So the answer is that yes, I do think that potentially this is in their purview, provided that the village board asks them to weigh in.
Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure. Trustee Peeper.
Last question. I see that this was submitted by Scott Anderson and not yourself. So who actually created the map of where these trees are going to be planted? Was it Scott or yours?
Well, it was Scott in coordination with Wachtel, who's our forestry consultant and serves as the village forester.
But he's not here. Scott.
No, I mean, I'm fully up to speed on the contract.
My concern is that the residents where these trees are supposed to, or planned to be planted, were not contacted to see if that is agreeable to them, since they're going to be the ones maintaining, trimming, picking up the leaves, cleaning up after, whatever it may be. It's pretty much up to, I would like to see those residents approve where these trees are going to be planted.
Well, the comprehensive tree plan, I guess, didn't contemplate that level of engagement where individually, like parcel by parcel or adjacent parcel by adjacent parcel, that we'd be engaging with residents. It did talk about communicating what would be happening, so there would be expectations from residents about, you know, what is going to happen in the right of way adjacent to my property, where in the past that's been an issue or a contention. So
Yes.
we're trying to resolve that. So the idea would be that we'd get the contract approved, and then we know the locations of these tree plantings, and then we would communicate with the residents.
Well, it looks like on the map that there are locations for where these trees are to be planted.
Yes.
So, excuse me, this is why I intend to send it to the tree committee so they can look into it further, contact the residents, see if it's agreeable for that type of tree to be planted there, if that location is agreeable to them. I'm only one vote.
Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works approved this unanimously, and this is partly because it's time to plant now. The committee has not been set up yet. It will be later this summer, going into fall, and this has to be done now. And I've never envisioned anybody at their house saying, I want a tree or I don't. That's our land. And the trees are going in. We're in. That's the way it is. They were never going to have that ability to make it spotty where a tree here, then 5 doors down, there's another tree. That was never the intent.
The sites are identified, so there's approximately, or as of last year, there were approximately 300 vacant tree sites, and they're vacant because they'd previously had a tree, or they were potentially identified as a new site. But typically they would have been vacated by a tree that died or was knocked over or was removed for some other reason. And the goal of this 5-year replanting process was to reestablish trees in those vacant sites. So there's approximately 300 of those. The planting this year would address about 90 of the 300.
Forgive me for being hesitant after the absolute chop job of the tree trimming that was done recently. So I am hesitant
understand.
to move forward with this without putting it through more eyes, more views.
Further discussion, trustee Jan Miller.
I was going to pull this item as well. I was living the dream last spring when all the chopping was being done. And I had some angry residents that they were taking care of these trees. They thought they were their own. They thought that the HOA covered the fact that they were supposed to take care of them. So there were a lot of misunderstandings. And this contractor that has been selected is exactly the same contractor that, no, it's not the same contractor. It's
No,
not the one.
the tree pruning that happened in the fall was Crawford, and this is
Dan Larson. Okay, so, but the fact that we've been talking about, I agree, we've been talking about this tree committee. And I believe that it should go in front of the tree committee. So my question is, I have various layers. Where do you apply? Who do you apply to?
It's appointed by Bob when he comes on board.
Not a, well, you have to apply.
No, Bob.
We're not that far along.
No, can we hear it from Matt? What is it?
Well, yeah, essentially the process hasn't been identified. There's the ordinance states that there's a citizen member, there's a trustee member,
right,
and then there's the village forester. How the trustee member and the citizen member are appointed will be determined through a process with the new president, presumably.
Okay, what is the timeline for planting trees? I thought you could plant trees in the spring and the fall.
Yeah, spring is the ideal window, but there is a fall planting window as well. I will say if we postpone this or decide not to award this tonight or in the near future, that, you know, we have incurred some costs through Wachtell and hours doing bid tabulations and that sort of thing and preparing documents that we'll probably have to go through again in the fall if that's when we chose to do it.
Oh, couldn't we postpone this for the next meeting and get the whole landscaping or tree committee together. What it could be a couple of weeks. Would that be too long?
Yeah, I
It's
think
still spring.
my thought is that it would probably take some time to identify a citizen through some process. Now, that's not my call, but it's just my hunch that that would take a little bit of time. And it would probably push us past either late May or past May into June, and then we're kind of outside of the planting
All
window.
the good trees are gone. Just get the scrappy ones.
Uh, So it's not impossible.
That would be a matter of opinion.
Very,
Point of order, we need a motion.
very fastest it could happen. There, I think, is a motion.
We have a motion. You
She
made
said
it.
there was no motion. No, she said there's no motion. Sorry, she just asked me, that was my apologies. She had asked me if there was a motion on there, and I said no. So that was my my issue. I apologize. So there is, but there's no second, right?
Yes, I second.
Okay, so can we vote on the motion? I call the question.
I didn't recognize you.
I called the question.
I didn't recognize you. Trustee Warren.
This very question was raised by me at the Public Works Committee, and I asked, how is the tree committee being integrated into this whole decision? And I heard the same explanation. Me, Trustee Miller, and Trustee Kaminsky were satisfied with that. So it was unanimously passed by Public Works Committee. I think if we try to get into a deeper level of decision-making where we have a committee to decide how trees are going to be trimmed, you can throw all your schedules out the window. And what you're going to end up with now, instead of just 2 or 3 people not being happy with what the tree looks like, you're going to have 5 people that aren't happy with it. I think the whole committee at a level of tree trimming and that is just ridiculous.
Trustee Peeper.
I call the question.
All those in favor of calling a question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So can you please read the motion so everybody understands?
The motion was to send item F to the new tree committee.
Okay, everybody understands?
I didn't hear you.
The motion is to send item F to the new tree committee to decide.
It does exist. It doesn't have anybody on it yet.
All right, roll call vote, please, since it's money.
Trustee Warren,
No.
Trustee Ketz,
No.
Trustee Baum,
No.
Trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Peeper, Trustee McMiller,
Nope.
Trustee Kaminsky, Village President Walter,
No, nay.
Make a motion.
Fails.
Make a motion to approve item F as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? One more time, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
Trustee Ketz,
Aye.
Trustee Baum,
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller,
No.
Trustee Peeper,
No.
Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky, Village President Walter,
Aye. That takes care of all items on consent agenda. Next item is unfinished business, starting with unfinished business item A, Windows 11 upgrade project.
I'll go. I make a motion to send this back to GGF for further review. I found several inconsistencies and major concerns in the packet's agenda. I discussed this already with Administrator Kreklow, but the replacement devices are being a blanket replacement for devices. It's not a singular device compared to another replacement device, including processor, speed, RAM, everything like that. And they're just quoting out Dell across the board, not to mention that they wanted a blanket proposal for 150,000, but now all of a sudden it's like less than half of the amount that they were originally quoting us, and that is a concern in
This is a
itself.
motion?
That was my
Is it a
motion.
motion with discussion?
That was my motion, and that was my reasoning for making my motion.
Okay, the reason can get into the discussion part. So can you just state your motion?
Make a motion to send this back to GGF for further review.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Now discussion. Trustee Peeper?
I'm done.
Okay.
I hear you.
Further discussion? Trustee Rick Miller?
Yeah, I reviewed the proposal and I don't follow the same view that you do. There's 3 different computers on there. There's laptops, there's 2 desktop units in there. The RAM and everything seems good. I priced them out on my Dell site today. They were spot on with the same price. However, it was a not to exceed 150,000. That was for replacing everything. Now, after looking at it, Aaron looked at it a little bit further, so I didn't want to put misinformation out there. It's now 32 units instead of 62 units, I believe. However, we should look at this at GGF to see if there's any other peripherals or any laptop, screens or anything like that, because that was not included.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Well, first time. Motion carries. That takes care of unfinished business. New business, starting with new business item A, new dispatcher appointment.
Make a motion to approve new business item A. This went through public safety and was approved unanimously.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? Toss. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Ketz?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Peeper?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Village President Walter?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item under new business is item B, a report on the 2025-2026 Wisconsin Department of Transportation Municipal Salt Agreement. Give us more information, background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our Director of Public Works. Matt.
So every year we get a relatively short window of time to look at our salt consumption from the winter that's kind of just ending and then make commitments to the DOT for next year's salt. That window just passed. We had a two-week period in March that was between meetings. So what the staff has typically done is make those commitments, and that's what we did today. So I'm making the report about what was decided and purchased. I think in the future, what we're going to do, and we could talk about this if you'd like, is come earlier in the process to fall more in line with ordinance and the new purchasing procedure and ask for authorization to act in this way. But regardless, we made a commitment to the DOT to participate in the salt contract again and to essentially replace in salt what we used in the operation over the course of this winter. So it's a commitment to 1,500 tons and up to 1,800 tons. That 300 is at our discretion. We could take it if we need it or not. The idea is that, like I said before, we're essentially getting ourselves back to where we were before the start of this winter. And what we want to do is we want to be able to evaluate how the operations go in a more taxing winter. We had a relatively low number of operations, and we didn't get to see the benefits of using both locations for salt could have to the operation. Down the road in future years with some of that experience under our belt, it's possible that we could draw down some of our reserves and spend less over a couple of years worth of budgets to replenish salt. But at least for the coming year and maybe, the year after that, we'd look to kind of maintain this level that we talked about and kind of staying, quote unquote, commodity wealthy. I do think it's a good position to be in for the village, because, salt doesn't get cheaper every year. There's a couple, 2 or 3%. And this year there's talk of, potentially greater percentages because of tariffs and that sort of thing.
I make a motion to approve new business item B oh, this is information only?
Just a report.
Any questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
So Matt, I kind of scanned through this pretty fast and I saw a lot of volume charts, but I didn't see any pricing charts. So what's the cost of salt these days?
We paid a little over $90 a ton in the period last year when we purchased 2,700 tons. So this year we're purchasing 1,500 tons at something greater than we paid this year. Likely a 3% increase, but potentially more. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But you always have to make this commitment before you know the price, which seems completely backwards.
Oh, that's
but that's
yeah.
that's working with the state on salt. Unfortunately.
Do you happen to know there are other salt suppliers? So do you
Nothing
know?
on the level of the state salt contract.
Understood.
The cooperative buying power of the state contract is really big.
Yeah.
So that's always the best one to be on.
Okay. But you don't, so you anticipate it to be over 90?
Yeah, I think it was 90.53 approximately, if I
Okay.
remember that right. And if you add 3% onto that and multiply it by the 1,500 tons, I think it's 135,000-ish that we're talking about for next year.
So when we have our salt storage units filled, what are we holding as far as dollar amount for our total inventory?
That's a little
Approximately.
tricky question because there's multiple seasons of cost in the
Sure.
inventory.
Understood.
But if you just,
Averaged it.
yeah, I mean, say we've got 5,000 ton of salt right now and just at last year's cost, that would be, just gonna do $90. That'd be $450,000.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see how this next year goes and
Yeah, I do
hopefully
think
we can
there's,
consolidate.
I do think there's an opportunity, if winters remain relatively mild and our operation numbers stay relatively low, and we can make some gains with brine distribution, that we can keep the salt at a low level for, for the future, and work to draw down that number.
And what is the cost? The brine uses the solar salt, correct?
Does, yeah.
What is the cost on that?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number with me.
Okay, would it be higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher, yeah, okay.
So you really didn't get a chance to try it for our own brine making. It was going to be a good test as to how well that worked now that we had our own operations under our roof.
I mean, for what we were able to do this year, it worked very well. So we put more brine out than we have in any year in the past. And it's definitely the way to go if you want to continue to reduce salt. I think, the next step is there'll be a cost associated with increasing brine distribution capabilities in the fleet. And that's something that everyone will have to consider at some point in the near future.
Okay. Any other questions? No other questions? Thank you, Matt. Next item is new business item C, application for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Signals and ITS Standalone Program, SISP, grant for signal traffic control improvements to County Line Road and Appleton Avenue. Matt, this is yours also?
It is. So this is an application to upgrade the signals at County Line in Appleton. The village did apply for this at one point in the past, I want to say around 2020, 2021, and actually ended up being awarded the program, but in the interim, without a public works director, that award kind of fell through the cracks, and we were encouraged to reapply. It's an advantageous grant in that it's a 90% state share, 10% local share. So the estimated project total for the signal improvements at that intersection is almost $700,000. So our commitment out of that would be about $70,000.
And that is our responsibility for all the signals along County Line? That one is ours, one of those?
That one is one of ours, yes.
Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, trustee Chan Miller.
Will we have opportunities to do, to upgrade any of the other, do we have any other intersection controls that the Village of Germantown is responsible for along County Line?
Yes, there's three entities that control traffic signals along County Line Road. So there's ourselves, the Falls, and the state. And I know there's been discussions, and we talked about it at Public Works last week about kind of the segmented nature of traffic along County Line Road. And unfortunately, that's a result of a system that ourselves, the Falls, and the state agreed to, where the state would take control responsibility while we held maintenance responsibility. So we interconnected all those signals via a state system to improve the flow through that corridor. Unfortunately, that system is no longer functioning and the state isn't really supporting it. They're doubtful that they will in the future. So we're kind of back to square one and trying to work with the state, the county, and the Falls on a short-term and then a longer-term solution to that.
So
This is one of the five, but it doesn't really address that question. This is
Right.
strictly a signal improvement for that intersection.
Right. So, have you reached out to any of those entities, other entities? I mean, it sounds like the state's closed.
All of them, yeah. We've talked to the signals rep for the state. We've talked to the county, and I haven't spoken directly to the Falls, but they've been included on correspondence.
Okay. I would think that the county would have some opportunity to help out.
That's what we're hoping.
Further discussion? Trustee Warren?
Well, it's kind of unfortunate. We spent the money in the past. We put in fiber optic cable to interconnect all of these signals, so you get platooning in that. So that infrastructure is in there. The only thing I ask is, with this improvement at this intersection, is that whatever we do doesn't prevent us from interconnecting the signals to the east. So I put it on us to make sure that we aren't doing anything, or at least make them aware. Maybe we, at this stage, we can incorporate the new systems or part of it into that intersection in anticipation of us getting to interconnecting the rest of the signals.
Yeah, my last communication with the state was asking that very question, trying to identify, is there a way, even if the scope of this project grew a little bit, that we could resolve the bigger problem with the project, or at least not have the project, make the solution more difficult. So I agree. Those are good end goals that we should have. I don't believe it does negatively affect it.
Trustee Cutts?
$70,000, where is that coming from?
It would be a future budget item, so that's why it's for you tonight.
This is just for an application.
Yeah, we'd be applying. The award would happen sometime in the next couple months, And then our commitment would be, it would be a village-run project and then reimbursed by the state. So the work would likely begin after, well, in 2026, early 2026.
So it'd have to be part of the
Design.
2026 budget.
So,
Trustee Warren?
I think just a quick clarification for the board. I think some of us are still gun shy about that last intersection that we improved. So maybe Matt, as you explained it in Public Works Committee, why that isn't as much of a concern on this project.
Yeah, so when we're talking about Maple and Lannon and kind of the unanticipated costs associated with that we all experienced last year, that largely had to do with the village requesting uncovered items in that project. So in order to keep true to our 90-10 cost share, we have to keep the project limited to the scope that we've identified here and not try to pull in uncovered items.
Trustee Chan Miller?
Matt, does the village actually do the work? Do we, our trucks, our people, or are we contracting this out? Or does the state come in? What happens?
It depends which work you're talking about.
This.
The actual project work?
Project work, right.
No, that would be contracted.
Okay,
Further,
thank you.
further discussion? No further discussion? We don't need roll call for this, right? No money, it's just for an application. Roll call vote, please. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Ketz?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Village President Wilchin?
Aye. Okay, next item under new business, thank you, Matt, is item D, update on planning for 4th of July activities. Village Administrator.
I'll start this, and if I need to phone a friend, I've got the Parks and Rec Director back there. If you recall, earlier this year, the Parks and Rec Director gave a presentation to the board about options for scheduling 4th of July activities that might reduce the impact on staff and help to alleviate the shortage of volunteers that we've had in recent years. The feedback from the board at that meeting was that, there could be some slimming of some of the activities that were provided last year, and really focusing though on providing the parade on the morning of the 4th and the fireworks on the evening of the 4th. And the Parks and Rec staff has been moving forward with planning on that. The Parks and Rec Commission also did at one of their meetings have a discussion of this and sent a letter to the board, which is included in the packet, that expressed their concerns about this additional workload on the Parks and Rec staff. And I met with the Parks and Rec Commission at their, now I can't remember if it was their February or March meeting, but it was at one of those two meetings, and did have a discussion with them about those concerns, and, indicated that one, we are sensitive to their concerns, and I share their concerns about the impact on Park and Rec Division workload. And that's part of the reason why the board, was okay with reducing some of the ancillary activities that had been done in the past, like the concert, the day of the fireworks, and some of the other kids' activities, and just focusing on those core activities. In addition, we are taking some additional short-term steps. We've been talking to some other nonprofit groups within the community, and while I don't think anyone's in a position or willing to take over all of the work on 4th of July, there are some who are interested in participating in pieces of it. So we're working with them to take on some components of it. And also, we will be looking at some other Village Hall staff participating in the staffing of the events on the 4th of July as well. So it's not just Park and Rec staff. And I also agree, as some of the other discussion took place, we need to long-term look at some other solutions. And that's, I think, a long-term conversation for this board to have over the next few months.
Questions? Trustee Cutts?
I guess want to clarify because that is not how I remember it happening. I remember that it came before the village board, December, and both options were presented and there was a lot of questions asked. And I believe it was Trustee Miller said that this needed to come back in January so we could really talk about it and figure stuff out. And it didn't come back in January. We got an update that there was more planning going on and then it would come back to the board once you had that planning. And then I saw it in the paper that we were doing it. So I don't remember ever saying as the board that we were okay with that. We hadn't even figured it out. So I just wanted to clarify that from my perspective, what I remember from those meetings.
Other questions? Trustee Jan Miller?
Thank you, Trustee Cutts. Yes, I remember it exactly the same way, actually. And I was shocked to see a newspaper article in March regarding the 4th of July parade and that the Park and Rec department was taking it on, when indeed this letter that you've put in the packet was dated January 14th. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And it basically says, thanks for the opportunity, but from the Park and Rec, but we can't do it. And I believe it was presented at the February meeting. Gil can confirm or deny, but I saw the letter. And so I'm really struggling with these 4th of July activities because I thought we were going to seriously talk about it as a board, as a village board, in January or at latest February, and here we are, April. I was one of the trustees that stepped up with Trustee Phil Hudson back in 2021. And we also had we tried to start a 501c3 called Celebrate Germantown, which I haven't heard any updates about either. And if I don't expect the Park and Rec department to be able to really participate in this. They are working very hard. It's their busiest season all summer. And they were clear about that. They gave us a couple of solutions. Have it on the 26th of June while they have one of their concerts. And this board said, well, it's kind of, no, we really want to have it on July 4th. So I would like to understand, I don't think you really answered the question from Trustee Cutts, but I would like a list of the nonprofits that you've contacted and you're going to be working with, because the Park and Rec department, we've cut their budget, and they had to give up a person or a half a person. I just don't think it's fair. It's their busiest season, and they graciously gave us notice back in January. So could you expound on who are the nonprofits and what's the status of the Celebrate Germantown 501c3? Thank you.
I will say I'd rather not announce the names of the organizations that I've been talking to, because I don't know to what extent they've talked to their membership, and I don't want them hearing, outside of a proper channel. So I'd be happy to share that information with the board in another at another meeting or through another means, but I don't think it would be fair to the people that I've been talking to from those other organizations to to say something publicly when they haven't had a chance to talk with their members yet, or may not have had a chance to talk with their members yet. And I think I'll allow the village attorney to talk about the 501c3 and the status of that.
Sure. The organization itself was created. There was an issue with the tax exempt status of that organization. There's a request basically or filing with the IRS that needs to be made. That's been made, but the IRS through COVID basically ended up with a backlog of these things. And the last information, in fact, I just double checked again. They basically, if anybody who has applied after basically May 30th hasn't even been assigned anybody to review it yet. Everybody before that is just being processed. That information hasn't changed in, I think, 2 months now from the IRS. So they're just swamped and working through the applications and whenever they receive them. So when we hear something, we'll respond and address it. But at this point, we haven't heard anything, either an approval or a request for additional information. Those are typically the two options that you see at this point. But just don't have anything yet.
Trustee Kaminsky?
I kind of prefer to look at this update as the cup being half full as opposed to half empty or tipped over. Okay, this is progress to me, whether it came up in January or February, or it's coming up at the beginning of April. This is progress to me. And we want to have an event on July 4th. And I think nobody is in a better position to know the workload of his employees than our village manager. So to me, it's up to him to figure out who has time and who does not to run this, with hopefully these volunteer organizations, one or more of them. So I appreciate the update, and at least it looks like we're moving forward, and that makes me happy. And I don't think we would have had anything different happening if we had discussed this in February, frankly. Probably less.
Trustee Warren?
I share the same sentiment that Trustee Kaminsky has. And I guess maybe this information is out there already. Where is the biggest workload for Park and Rec? And what are the tasks that they have to do? And then based upon that, we could look at charitable organizations to see what makes sense as far as dividing up the load. Just to have letters coming at us saying that Park and Rec must step back from serving as the primary coordinator. That doesn't sit well with me. It's like, give me some options here. Where do you need help? How can we help you? How can we reach out to these charitable organizations? To me, that's solid numbers that we can work with. Right now, it's just there's no substance to it right now. And starting on a different date is a non-starter for me.
Other questions? Trustee Baum?
I guess I'm remembering the original discussions a little bit different than Trustee Cutts and Trustee Miller. I thought we had agreed that we were downsizing all this. It was only going to be the parade, and it was only going to be the fireworks, and everything else was going to be removed. And that's what we finally agreed to. And then we had asked the Parks Department to start looking into it, and it says the village board should consider alternative solutions for future celebrations. Yes, this is the last year we are going to ask them to do this, and we will make more changes one way or another next year. But this was the last time we were going to go back to the park, have them do it all. But it was a downscaled version is what I recall.
Any other questions? There's no other questions. We can go on to the next item, which is item E, discussion concerning membership of the Joint Review Board. Village Attorney.
Sure. So I understand obviously that questions were raised at the Plan Commission as we talked about the potential TID in the Village Center District, TID number 10. Questions really centered around whether or not the Joint Review Board needed to appoint a citizen member or not. I think that question largely was driven by frequently asked question that was on the Department of Revenue's webpage that indicates that it is that you should and that it's a best practice to do that. I think in all honesty, and I haven't been able to reach out to the department. I haven't really tried, in all honesty, to confirm my suspicion, but my suspicion is that that frequently asked question document just hasn't been updated since the change in the statute back in 2016. That would seem to make sense. Prior to 2016, most communities, the village included, basically would convene a joint review board anytime the joint review board needed to do something. If we were going to create a TID, if we were going to amend the TID, whatever the case may be, you would just create one, call it good, and then move. Which is why then the statute says when you have to create that joint review board, that you have to, before the public hearing is held, have your citizen or public member and your chair appointed by the board. In 2016, they eliminated the ability for communities to do that. The statute now says basically that you create a standing joint review board that exists as long as you have a TID within the taxing jurisdiction. Doesn't say that it's as long as that TID is in existence, but instead it is all TIDs within the taxing jurisdiction, provided that they have the same overlying tax jurisdictions, which in Germantown is always going to be the case. So I think that the statute, I can't even blame a lobbyist on this one like I typically do. This was a process through the legislature. The legislature studied tax increment districts and proposed some changes to it in 2016. The problem is that when they made the changes, they didn't change the language that dealt with the issue of when you needed to appoint your chair and your public member, and instead just kind of left it, which makes a lot of sense because the rest of the statute really contemplates the concept that that lays out the process for how you create it. It doesn't then contemplate how you amend it or change it as you move along, which is fairly consistent with what the statutes do for other bodies. The Board of Review, for example, for tax assessments, identifies how you create the Board of Review. It doesn't do anything above and beyond that in terms of how you do it. Plan Commission is another example where the statute says, here's how you create the body. It doesn't deal with, amendments or changes to that particular body. And so, viewed in that light, I think that the Joint Review Board is a standing Joint Review Board, such that the agenda for the Joint Review Board in this particular case was correct, that you always want to make sure that you have on your agenda the appointment of a chair or your appointment of a public member, because you may need to. If there's a vacancy in one of those positions, you're going to need to do that at that meeting. And so it's good practice to have that on the agenda. But the fact that the Joint Review Board didn't take any action where there was no vacancy to fill is appropriate. Now, I will note, obviously, with President Walters, final meeting here, almost. I think you've got a Plan Commission yet technically before your term is done. There will be a vacancy in the chair, obviously, at that point. So the Joint Review Board at their next meeting will, as part of the agenda, have the appointment of the chair. They'll fill that vacancy like they would in any other case. But I don't think that you would do a new election every time you have it, because as I say, you end up with kind of an absurd result potentially where you have, 7, 8, 9, 10 different joint review boards that are just always in existence. And that just doesn't make any sense. And it's not really consistent with how we interpret and address statutory language otherwise. And so I don't think that there's been anything wrong with that. I did run the question by some of my colleagues. As I think we've mentioned before, we have a weekly kind of Zoom meeting where all of the, well, not all, but a bunch of the municipal attorneys across the state get together, kind of pose questions at each other. And I did ask there, and everybody agreed that no, it's a standing committee. You don't need to reappoint every time as well. So it's a consistent interpretation across the state as far as I can tell as well.
Questions? No questions? Of course. Trustee Chan Miller?
Of course.
Of course.
So, just a question. Were you able to watch the Joint Review Board meeting?
I did not watch the joint review board meeting. No.
Well, apparently it was on WebEx, and it was like, it is available online. So that is something that you could watch. So instead of looking at, just the agenda itself, you can actually see and listen to the discussion. And I think that any conversation regarding spending or potential spending or growth, I think it would be an important meeting for you to be at, as well as the Plan Commission following up with that. So I was a little surprised that you weren't at the dais that evening. So I do have the floor, right? Of course.
Yes.
So that was my question. And so you took the time to write your report. How much time do you think that took? Just asking. We get billed. What's wrong?
Have to do with the joint, what does this have to do with the joint review
I have the floor.
Point of order,
I have the floor.
point of order.
Point of
Overrules your
order.
being on the floor.
Easy. What's the line of questioning and pertaining to? I mean, it almost sounds like judge and jury here. So what?
I'm trying to understand the cost for writing something after the fact, and he didn't watch the meeting
No.
or being present at the meeting.
I mean, I'm happy to answer the question. It took me a handful of hours to research and put together a memo.
Sure.
On it. I did not watch the meeting. I did review the draft minutes that were available. And so I do have an understanding of what took place at the Plan Commission. In addition, I've heard from multiple individuals who were in attendance at both meetings as to their take as to what took place. Whether or not I should be there, ultimately, that is at the direction of primarily the administrator on the day-to-day operations, and certainly he takes his guidance from the board. If the board would like me to be at meetings above and beyond the ones that I typically go to, either the board itself or the committees can make the requests, and Administrator Treklow makes the decision whether or not he thinks it's appropriate for me to be there or not. I would suspect that that wasn't the case here, because we've created multiple TIDs since that change in the statute where we've handled the same process. We've done amendments to TIDs utilizing the same process. And so I'm not sure that anybody anticipated there was going to be a legal issue to be discussed. At least in terms of folks that were otherwise in the position to direct me whether to be at the meeting or not. Certainly, Mr. Cracklow can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's my guess.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, that it's up to the board when we have new things like this. I don't think it's like any other TID that we've had, because we did purchase property. So there are some distinctions. So that we do have the ability, the board, to ask to make sure that you're there if there's certain cases that probably need your expertise, as you did when you followed up. But I would appreciate if you'd watched both meetings. I think it's worthwhile.
Any other questions? No other questions? Then we go to next item, which is item F, purchase of right-of-way land for sewer and water lines as part of the intergovernmental agreement with Richfield. Village Administrator.
All right, as I think everyone on the board is aware, that we are involved and we did approve through a referendum, intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Richfield, whereby the Village of Germantown would provide water and sewer utility services to the Village of Richfield. What is before you this evening is one of the requirements of that agreement, which is the acquisition of right-of-way to extend the sewer and water lines from Freistadt Road to the north and west up to their planned business park. This is one piece of the property that that needs to be purchased. The cost of the property, well, let me back up and say also according to the terms of the agreement, the Village of Richfield is responsible for all of the legal expenses and the appraisal expenses related to these acquisition processes. So they have led that process. We did come back before the board not quite a year ago with the proposed route and authority from the village board to move forward with these negotiations, and that was approved by the village board. The law firm that was handling these negotiations has come to an agreement with the owner of the right-of-way that is directly adjacent to Freistadt Road and proceeds northwest probably about, as I would judge it, about halfway to the railroad tracks. That would include 5.686 acres. The negotiated price is $280,500, which works out to $49,332 per acre. And that number is supported with 2 appraisals that were included in the packet. This is something that does require action on a timely basis. The vacant land purchase and sale agreement expires on April 11th. So it is something that that needs action this evening from the board. The agreement between Richfield and Germantown provides that each pays 50% of the cost of the right-of-way acquisition. So our share would be half of that, $280,500 or $140,250. And that can be paid for, that acquisition can be paid for out of TID 7 funds. The final thing I'll just note is, again, we pay for half of the cost of the right-of-way, but when this process is completed, we do own 100% of the right-of-way. So it is turned over to Village of Germantown, and it is available to us for any future use.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Chan Miller.
I'd like to understand if, now I saw a couple of dates on these, the appraisals that came in. They were done in 2024, as you were saying. It was about a year ago. We talked about the IGA probably in 2022, 2021. And it went through, and the Village of Richfield had a proposal from an actual entity called Hillview. Recently that fell apart, and I would like to know what the rush is for this proposal, because I haven't heard anything from Richfield, and I think it would be nice if they came in and told us what their plans are, because it seems like we're in a rush to put water and sewer where there isn't even a road. And as was brought up, we're on the hook for putting in a road. Does Richfield pay anything for putting in a road?
Well, a couple of if I may,
Yep.
a couple of respond to a couple of the questions that were included in there. First of all, regarding the status of the development on the Richfield side, I do communicate regularly with the Richfield administrator. And as you stated, Hillwood Developers was someone that they were talking to when the IGA was approved. Hillwood delayed their development due to economic conditions, and the owner of the land allowed that contract to expire. And is now negotiating with other potential developers. That I don't get into the details of who Richfield is talking with and negotiating with. That's really wouldn't be appropriate for me to get involved in that at this point. But I do know that we do occasionally get contacts related to the Richfield development from M7, for example, which is the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Development Authority, who is, regularly talking to potential developers on that site. And so there's no specific timeline. There's not a specific proposal going forward, but there are ongoing negotiations and discussions. I think that it's fair to say, depending upon economic conditions and things that are outside of all of our control, eventually there will be a development that takes place there. What Richfield is trying to do by moving forward with these right-of-way acquisitions is to be prepared that when a developer comes in, that they are ready to go with construction. Because one of the factors that goes into whether or not these developments are successful is the speed of response. And typically when businesses make a locational decision, they want to move things along pretty quickly. So Richfield is trying to move forward and acquire the right-of-way that's necessary to extend the water and sewer up there. They're continuing on with that process. As I've reported previously to the village board, all of the engineering work and planning work related to the construction of the sewer and water lines is complete, up to the point of bid packages being prepared. And that was done at Village of Richfield expense. So they've spent the money on that. They're spending the money on the right-of-way construction so that they're prepared, when a development does come to fruition. Regarding the statement on the road, that was a question, and as part of this particular negotiation, the property owner did want to talk to the village about what was planned for the area. The gravel road refers to what the condition of the right-of-way would be after the sewer and water goes in, but before a road is constructed. Typically, because we need to maintain sewer and water lines, if they're not underneath a road, what we will do is put a gravel bed in place, because we have equipment that's up to 80,000 pounds that needs to be able to traverse the length of the sewer and water lines for maintenance purposes. So that is why the agreement says that on the right-of-way, we would be putting in a gravel path for that purpose.
And who pays for that?
That gravel path would be paid for by Richfield.
And the actual road?
If that's to be determined, the village board made the decision as we went through the planning process that we may at one point want a road that follows along that path. That's included in the 2050 plan. The path was presented and approved by the village board at previous meetings. There's no plans in the immediate future to construct a road. I think that the thought process behind that decision was that at some point, someone may want to develop that area once sewer and water is accessible. I think when we are approached by a developer who's interested in developing that area, that would be a conversation that we would have with them. Whether it would be a road that they would pay for, all of it or part of it, would be subject to negotiation.
This proposed road and the sewer, was this supposed to connect with High Point Pass?
Well, just to clarify, there is no proposed road at this point. This is a right-of-way. A proposal for a road is something that could happen down the future, since we have a right-of-way to put it in. The question of whether or not it would connect with High Point Pass is also to be determined. As we've had previous discussions with the board that you may recall, we have talked about the potential for applying with the Office of the Commissioner of Railroads for a crossing from High Point Pass across the railroad tracks and then eventually connecting down Freistadt. And that would help to alleviate some of the traffic concerns on Goldendale Road, provide an alternate route for trucks and cars to take parallel to that and avoid some of that heavier traffic on Goldendale. We have investigated that. One of the recommendations that we were given by a number of people we talked to who have gone through that process of applying for a crossing is that we should wait until we have the right of way on both sides of the railroad track. So this is one step towards that. There is additional right of way that has to be acquired yet. I think once all of that right of way is in place, then the village could move forward with an application to the Office of Commissioner of Railroads for a crossing.
So this is all, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, even though you take this connection up to High Point Pass or the railroad crossing. When you apply, you may not get the crossing. That is a possibility.
That's correct.
Okay, so to me, I've also heard you say that TID number 10, just wrapping it into 7, is one of the solutions for buying the properties was funding them from the other TIDs. Did I not hear you say that?
What?
To pay off?
Yeah, the question came up at the Plan Commission meeting
Right.
last week, if the Ehlers analysis included $6 million in other revenue. And
Grants, it was,
it was other revenue.
right.
And when Ehlers was asked
Mhm.
what that $6 million represented, they said it included a number of things. One was grants, which could be a piece of it, not the entire $6 million
Oh.
probably, but there probably could be some grants that could be recognized in there. The second thing was, it could be that the resale of the parcels that we've acquired could be higher than what was assumed. So that could be a factor in there.
Absolutely.
A third factor that Ehlers mentioned is the potential for revenue sharing from other tax increment districts. They mentioned in particular TID 8 as being the most likely candidate for that because that has the greatest cash flow. But TID 7 also does have a positive cash flow and does have a positive cash balance at this point. So it would also be a possibility with TID 7, although again, TID 8 has the greatest cash flow and would be the most likely candidate if that was necessary.
So I have a real hard time approving this because we have nothing solid from Richfield for their industrial park. We have a proposed TID that looks like that's where we're really concentrating right now, and the land is available. They waited since last year to get the appraisals and then come back and present something to you on March 24th, and they want an answer by April 11th. Is that quick?
It's because of the contract on the land.
The contract on the land. Is that quick? Is that relatively quick? I thought we used to talk about acquiring land and you get, I don't know, 30 days or something like that.
Write it any way you want, depending on
right.
the offer.
Well,
This is the offer that is on this one.
right. I don't want to take anything out of TID 7. I think we're pushing it.
What are we taking out of TID
And
7?
the water and sewer is not going anywhere.
What are we taking out of TID 7?
Right here, 140,000.
Already approved that. It's been revised, that TID has been revised to include that. That's approved.
The TID has been
We
approved.
revised it. We did an amendment to 7 and 8, remember? A half a mile radius, and
I
that was for
understand.
this portion.
I understand.
Okay.
You can take it out, but you don't have to approve the sale and the property.
What I don't understand is why the timing of Richfield's project matters with this part of the agreement. This is for benefit of Germantown, where Richfield is paying for half of the right-of-way and all of the sewer and water, which could be $9 million plus. That would allow that to be put in and looped and give us a better system on the sewer side, and also put in infrastructure that we wouldn't have to pay for. That's benefit us, and it's not dependent on their development or when their development happens. It's dependent on the MOU that we signed with them. So they are as beholden to it as we are. More so because they're monetarily funding more of it in regards to what that agreement states. So we can initiate that agreement whenever it makes sense for us, not dependent on their development. That's for them to figure out
What
how to
is the-
cover.
What's the big advantage for us to have this now?
I already said looping and also $9 million worth of infrastructure we wouldn't have to pay for. It makes it a better system.
Well, somebody mentioned that there might be errors in the looping.
Errors in the looping.
Errors in the
Two pipes running side by side.
Side,
I
close to
put
each
that-
other under the
Okay,
expressway.
that's not even part of this discussion, and that is final engineering that really doesn't give us a yes or no. They are beholden to put this in. We can move ahead with it anytime we want. It's not up to their development. Trustee Kaminsky.
I was just going to say, this is all part of the agreement. This is all part of the referendum.
Right.
You know what side of the referendum I was on. I
Right.
did not want water to go to Richfield, but it is, and I accept that. And now I want it to move forward to the best that it can possibly be, because that's how we are as representatives of the village. So, I mean, this is part of the agreement, and it does benefit us tremendously. And let's just get it done.
Who's asking for the water?
Where's the floor?
It's done. That's water over the bridge, the dam, or whatever the water goes over. It's done years ago now.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, this area has nothing to do with the Richfield side of things. None of it. This is all Germantown side. And this was the biggest benefit of the agreement, is to get this infrastructure for half the cost of the right of way. That's it. We don't pay for the water line. We don't pay for the sewer line. And that creates the loop from Holy Hill Road back down to Freistadt. It's the biggest benefit we have. I don't even know why there's a discussion here. There is nothing on the Richfield side on this, none of it. And it doesn't matter. It's part of the agreement. They have to pay for it.
Okay.
I'll call the question.
Call the question.
Trustee Pieper.
Call the question.
All those in favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Call the question. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
No.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
No.
trustee Pieper,
Aye.
trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item is new business item G, Meridian Germantown LLP versus Village of Germantown, case numbers 23-CV-426 and 24-CV-781. The village board may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subsection 1, subparagraph G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is involved, and then reconvene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed session for item G with our village attorney, our administrator, and Donna can go home. And is there anybody else that I need to include?
before we do that, before you is a proposal that's in the packet in terms of whether or not you want to approve that settlement agreement that's been proposed. If the thought of the board is that you just want to accept that agreement, we can certainly talk a little bit about how we got here as part of an open session discussion, but that would be an open session type discussion.
I withdraw my motion.
Only if we wanted to try to renegotiate or change the strategy, that's where we would look to go into closed session at this point.
Withdraw my motion.
Is that okay with the second, Bob? Bob, you're up. She's withdrawing her motion. Is that okay with you?
Only because it's going to be a discussion of what's out there, and if we need to renegotiate, then we go into closed session.
It's already in the packet.
Yeah, we can talk about it in open.
All right? All right, then we'll go into it. Meridian Germantown LLP versus Village of Germantown, case numbers 23-CV-426 and 24-CV-781.
And we do have Jason Gehring from Kasdorf, who is the attorney who's been representing the village here. And I guess I'd defer to him to kind of present where we are.
Sir, if you'd come to the microphone, since we still are in open session, I would greatly appreciate that.
Do we need a motion or do we need to wait for a presentation?
No.
Let the man sat through the whole meeting. Let him come here and say what he's come to say.
I'm okay either way, whatever.
Okay, all right. I make a motion to approve new business item G as
Second.
presented.
Second.
And for those that are listening, it entitles what?
It entitles settling.
You read it, but not people at home.
Since Mr. Gehring came all the way here, I'll let him summarize what it.
Yeah.
what it entails.
Then
He said he wants to go home.
within a 5-minute overview. So basically, it's a what?
It's an agreement with Walmart regarding the 2023 through 2025 tax years, excessive tax assessment claims that they filed. The details of it are outlined in the agreement. Essentially, for 2023, they're dropping their lawsuit that they filed without any payment. For 2024, there's a total payment of $2,694.65, which is something that can be charged back to other taxing jurisdictions. So the village's portion of that would be under $1,000. For 2025, there is a provision that if the assessment is set at $17,500,000, which is $200,000 less than what it was for 2024, then Walmart would not object to that assessment. However, if the assessment's higher than that, they could object, and it doesn't bind the assessor to set it at any level in the future.
Okay. So that's the agreement that your motion is entitled, correct? All right. Any discussion on that motion? Trustee Cutts?
I just have a question because this is the first I'm hearing of this. So they just basically disputed what they were being charged for property tax?
It's a dark store, comparing to other like-sized stores that are closed or are of lesser value.
Thank you.
Mhm. We're not the only village you go for. Trustee Jan Miller?
Is I call it the New Deal for 2025. Is it your opinion that we should accept that?
For 2025, it's really a one-sided agreement where it only would apply if the assessment is above $17,500,000, which it very well may be. So there's no real risk to the village in agreeing to 2025. It's only if the assessor decides to set it at that level, then Walmart cannot object. So yes, my recommendation is to agree to 2025. I don't think there's any downside to it. It would only provide potential protection from having another lawsuit filed next year.
So what is our commitment on 2024? Is it the 1,000 or the 2,600?
The initial commitment is the 2,694. However,
Right.
at the end of the year, the village can charge back to other taxing jurisdictions. So it's about 2/3 that can be charged back because they only.
Oh, okay. That's the rule.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? We do roll call vote? Roll call vote, please.
Is this on everything? 23, 24, 25?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just one agreement.
I'm just going to restate the motion. Motion made by trustee Peeper to approve as presented. And that was seconded by trustee Bum.
Certainly.
Got it, Donna.
Okay.
Thank you. And we're going to start with trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Peeper, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky,
Aye.
and village president Walter.
Aye. All right, before we adjourn, just a reminder that this week is Wisconsin Severe Weather Awareness Week. It's April 7th through the 11th. Now, wait. Because of that, there'll be tornado siren testing on Thursday, April 10th at 1:45 PM and 6:45 PM.
I would just like to comment on that and say that that is perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. All right, then with that, we are adjourned.
I want to know if our siren